With that, I want to welcome everyone to How to Launch panel. And I want to introduce everyone here. We got a great panel of guests, and we might as well start with you, Khierstyn. Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, let's do super high level. I am a local entrepreneur here in Toronto, so represent. With that, I work with people to launch physical products online, specifically help people build brands and launch brands using Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. So crowdfunding is an awesome way to build a community, validate a product, and raise funding for initial inventory and in development. So we'll get into all that in a bit. But I've been helping entrepreneurs full time for the last 5 years to do this. We've raised multiple millions of dollars for our clients. And the most recent campaign last week, we hit a milestone where a week ago we launched a local Toronto um, guitar product that we raised 100,000 US in the first 14 hours. So that's what we help people do. And I'm really excited to jump in and kind of share my expertise. But that's what we do. I'm heavily into e-commerce and product launches online to start and build brands.
So we have represented crowdfunding, and now over to you, Alex.
So I'm a co-founder and managing director of Equivesto, which is a new Canadian equity crowdfunding platform. So it's just like Kickstarter and Indiegogo that Khierstyn referenced, except we help companies actually issue stock and securities to investors, and the general public can use this as a means to invest in these exciting new businesses with as little as $100. So companies can raise between 25,000 and 1.5 million using equity crowdfunding, and their communities and the general public can directly invest.
So crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, and Marcus.
Yeah, I'm the oddball out here. I've supported crowdfunding on a personal level. On a professional level, I guess I'm best known through TorontoStarts as the cynic. I always will see another point of view, always challenge the way things are done according to the norm. Because I don't believe in the traditional business models, and even nowadays I still consider e-com and stuff. It's been around long enough that it's a very traditional model. So I'm excited to hear what your guys' unique point of view are, and then completely disagree with them.
So that's kind of what I expect to happen. Exactly. So I appreciate everyone taking the time today. And again, if you have questions, put them in the chat room in the Q&A window, and we'll get to them. So Khierstyn, you're up first. What is the one thing that makes the most impact on the success of a crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah. So first thing, if I can interject with a question I think the audience doesn't know they have, the difference between Kickstarter and equity-based crowdfunding. I think that's important to draw a distinction between the two and then get into what is the most important thing that someone has to take into consideration.
Oh,
So,
thanks for taking over. Go ahead.
oh no, it's just, here we go. So equity-based crowdfunding, which Alex is going to get into, is you're raising funds through trading a percentage of your company, essentially, right? Alex will get into that. What Kickstarter and Indiegogo is all about, and my dog is scratching at the door if you can hear that. But Kickstarter and Indiegogo are crowdfunding platforms that are rewards-based crowdfunding. This means that typically it's like for that first product you want to bring to market, you're going to raise money through pre-orders. So people, when you go and put your product up on Kickstarter, you're actually pre-selling your product. So you're raising capital through pre-orders. People are giving you money to pre-order your product, and then you take those funds and go and manufacture, produce, fulfill within 4 to 6 months. That's the difference. So in saying that, the biggest mistake that I see people make with crowdfunding campaigns is they see Kickstarter as this massive platform that has millions of viewers on a monthly basis and millions of repeat customers. Because of that customer base that Kickstarter already has in that community, it leads a lot of people, majority of people, to assume that all they have to do is launch a campaign and Kickstarter is just going to feed them free traffic. So that is the one mistake people make, is making that assumption. And the reality is that in order to make it big and to hit your funding goals and be successful on Kickstarter, it comes down to understanding how their algorithm favors projects and how you can earn that traffic. So what you need to do, the number one thing, assuming you have already validated your product and you have something that people will want, you need to have an audience of qualified buyers ready to come in and pre-order your product on day one. So the biggest mistake people will make is not spending the time building up an audience or an email list, community of people excited and ready to buy your product when you go live on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And then what will happen when you come in and you have a strong start through sales on that first day, that's when Kickstarter's algorithm will pick you up as a favored project and start to feed you free traffic. So you have to jumpstart the engine, and then Kickstarter is going to be the fuel on the fire, but you have to bring the kindling and you have to start that fire yourself. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. That's a great point. I always call it the golden rule that, the 24 to 48 hours, you have to get 30% of your raise in order to get that engine to start working in your favor, which is fantastic. But you need to get that 30% and bring that to the table right away. How is that different, or is that different with equity crowdfunding, Alex?
That's a great question, Craig. And it's actually the exact same. So a lot of companies will approach us and say, oh, like, I have this great idea. It's fantastic. Put me on your platform. Like, you have, hundreds or thousands of investors. Like, just let me get all of their money right now. And I don't wield that money. That's their own personal money that they can choose where they'd like to put it. Same with every other equity crowdfunding platform out there. And so it's not like just by nature of being on the platform, you'll suddenly be gifted, $2 million or whatever you want, without having to do anything. These individuals will choose whether they want to participate. And just by the way human nature works, it's the exact same as Kickstarter. Nobody is going to want to participate or get involved until you have demonstrable traction. With equity crowdfunding, there's actually what's called a back out window for investors. So there's a 48-hour period after investing that you can change your mind and get a full refund. And the investors also have there's a minimum raised limit. So the companies come on the platform and they say, okay, I want to raise, $100,000 or $50,000. And if they don't reach that amount, all the money is refunded. So you'd think with these protections in place, investors would be more willing to put their money in and support a business. But that's not true. With human nature, they're looking to see traction. They're looking to see something exciting going on that they feel that they need to be a part of before it's gone and it's, the deal has closed. And so with equity crowdfunding, it's actually important to assume that the safest way to run a campaign is to assume zero investment from anyone already signed up on the platform, and that you will need to do marketing and community building activities before your campaign launches to actually build that community. If you come in with that sort of mentality and you take some time beforehand, work with marketing experts to sort of prepare that, then you'll have a great campaign. But if you show up and say, put me on your platform, I'm ready to go, and you don't do any of that work, there's a very high likelihood that you won't be successful.
Yeah, and there's a saying: there's no FOMO without Mo. You need momentum to get the fear of missing out. If you need some momentum for people to think, hey, I'm missing that. Look, people are excited about it. People are investing. People are buying. You don't get. They don't get that response if you're like, oh, I'm 10% kind of, and we're halfway through our campaign versus, we're 75% full, we're this far in, that kind of stuff. So it's definitely, to get people to invest or consider your product, you really need to get that momentum going yourself. And Marcus, how do you think this is different from launching a business versus a crowdfunding campaign?
So, I mean, for me, crowdfunding is exciting and terrifying all at the same time, and for many of the same reasons. It sounds almost repetitive. so many times it's the field of dreams mentality, right? If you build it, they will come. And a lot of people are like, you know, they quit their job. Most people quit a full-time career and move into entrepreneurship, not because they don't like the company anymore, but because they think they can do it better than the person that was pissing them off. So they're like, I will just start doing what that person does, and because I can do it better, I will be successful. And that's the field of dreams mentality. So just to reiterate the same kind of things, I mean, you need to have a plan, you need to have, you know, the marketing, you need to have everything there. The real big difference with business versus crowdfunding is when you're going into a traditional business, you need to have a lot of money. And you need to make sure that your plan is going to outlast your money, or, you know, get a couple of investors up front, that kind of thing. But to get solid investors in a traditional business model, you still need to have a plan. You still need to have the marketing. You still need to have all of the data points. So very similar in different ways, but instead of looking at your money or a few people's money, you're just putting it out there for everyone to, you know, invest in. And they're equally terrifying, but both equally exciting.
So I think about the product versus the marketing when it comes to launching a company or product or a crowdfunding campaign. And I think back to, and I can't remember, but what was, and I'm sure someone's going to, what was that little stool for the toilet?
Squatty potty.
There you go. Was that a great product or was that great marketing? So I preface that statement for this question. How important is the product to a company or crowdfunding campaign success? Khierstyn?
Yeah, so that depends, because you get a product like Squatty Potty that had a bit of traction, had a bit of a story, and had all the fundamentals needed to go viral. But why they did so well is because they hired the Harmon brothers. They had I don't know how much they paid for that video, but they paid probably close to $100,000 for that video, told an amazing story, amazing marketing, and the thing goes viral. I know that I fell in love with their story and what they're doing because of their marketing. And because of that, I love their product. But I know that you can't have that kind of video and then deliver a product that's crap and still be successful long term. So if you have a massive marketing budget, the reality with Squatty Potty and Poopery is with an amazing video and amazing marketing, you skyrocket. But it's not about the marketing, it's about the product and who you're selling it to. At the end of the day, if you decide to hire Harmon Brothers and you have a generic product that isn't serving a specific demographic, doesn't have great reviews, and can't back up the marketing claims with a stellar product, you're going to go out of business really quickly, because you're really going to atrophy from the inside out. So it comes down to great product first, and then marketing comes second. However, I think it is a fine balance of the two, because if you have a great product and you just put it on Kickstarter and you don't market it, no one's going to find out about it. So start with the product, make sure you know who you're serving, make sure you know who the human is behind the product that you want to serve and how exactly your product makes their life better. And then focus on really understanding how to communicate that with the person. And then you can get into the marketing behind that. So I think the product comes first, and the marketing helps amplify it, but the product at the end of the day is how you are going to stay in business.
Anyone disagree with that?
Of course I do. You know,
okay.
I do. I mean, it's healthy debate, respectful debate. So a lot of times the way I see Kickstarter products, and like I said, I've supported quite a few, some actually came through, some didn't. That's the risk of it all. It reminds me of the modern day grocery line, right? Right where you're waiting to pay. That's where all the crap magazines are. That's where all the stuff is. It's the impulse buy. And all those companies stay in business because you see the fancy cover and, oh, what's going to happen on Y&R this week? And then you buy it and you throw it down, you pay your money, and you get home and it's like 90% just garbage ads and fluff content. You're like, okay. And then you go and do it again next week. Now, Squatty Potty, I love that we have that frame of reference together, because I bought Squatty Potty. And the only reason I bought it is because someone had sent me the video. And I watched that video. I thought it was brilliant marketing, and having a marketing background, I was like, I have to support this just because that video was so epic. So we bought it, it arrived, it was a piece of plastic that you put your feet on. I used it for 2 weeks. It went into a cupboard somewhere and never thought about it again, right? So I think a lot of these products, I agree with you, it should be about the product, but I think what I've seen in Kickstarter and Indiegogo a lot of the time is you raise a lot of money. Like look at 3D printing, we were talking about that earlier. You can raise a lot of money to become profitable for a short period of time, deliver the minimum viable product. This is what we said we would do. We did it. So you can't really circumvent the rules, because Kickstarter will be like, well, did they deliver the product? Yes, they did. Sorry. And then these companies can move on to whatever the next thing is, and all your money goes with them. So I don't always agree that it's about the product. I think a lot of time the marketing is king to get you to do that impulse buy. And that's unfortunate, I think.
And I think that is what has to change about Kickstarter products, because you're right, great marketing brings in those initial sales, but marketing comes a promise. And if you can't deliver the product as expected, or to blow expectations like out of the water, then when you start to go for customer reviews and testimonials and to build off of that product experience from that first run, you're not going to have good reviews. People aren't going to talk about you. And again, it cannibalizes it from the inside out. So I think that's one thing that Kickstarter campaigns have to be really aware of, because they can spend so much time on marketing and selling it. But if the product is subpar or barely meets expectations, those customers are not going to buy that next product you release, which is the whole reason someone would do a Kickstarter, is to launch that brand, right? So I think it's something, you're right. I think the intention is not coming out as well as it could. And I think that product creators need to focus on product first to build sustainability through, like, versus just like making some quick cash on one campaign, right?
Yeah, no, we agree. So.
That's why I kind of like equity crowdfunding. It's time for a shameless plug from Alex.
Right.
With equity crowdfunding, you're not limited to only companies that produce products, but because you're actually investing in the business and everything like that, you're also, there's work that goes in that the platform we have to do legally, because we're actually we're helping sell the securities in this business. So we have to do full due diligence and all sorts of checks on the companies before they can be listed. Legally speaking, by putting a company on the platform, we're essentially recommending it to the investors. So not only do we have to do that for the companies, we have to make sure that the investors are a fit and they understand the risks and everything. But it sort of acts as a bit of a buffer, so that if the product is truly a terrible product, it's not going to pass muster with us, and it's not going to be put on the platform. We have to make sure that it is a viable and realistic business. We're not here to, only put forward companies that we would personally invest in, because there's so much inherent personal bias that comes with all that we don't want to get in the middle. But our job is to make sure that the businesses are viable and legitimate and make sense. And then we leave the choice up to the investors. So I agree with the initial premise that the marketing is extremely important, and it really brings the people to put their money in. But we don't even let them bother with any of the marketing if we haven't determined that it's a good enough product or service.
And I really wish Kickstarter and Indiegogo would start to go there, to do due diligence on claims being made. Indiegogo is doing a great job of like getting you to disclose what stage of development you're in. And they're, for example, if you say shipping or prototyping, they ask for photographic evidence to be on your page, and their trust team will go and make sure that you have real evidence to show that you're shipping or you're in a certain phase of development. So there is more transparency happening on the back end to help with due diligence, but I really wish there was like so much more with it. So
definitely, it makes sense. The challenge is, of course, the business model. Like, I am legally required by the government to do this, and if I don't, we go to jail. But Kickstarter's business model does not include that level of government oversight, and so even though
But
we
even-
might want it as, oh, sorry, Marcus, go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. I was going to jump in. Like, I find equity crowdfunding very interesting, but I find it risky in a different way. One, for the business investor, because essentially what you're doing in some capacity is you're going public. You're doing a small scale IPO for your business, and you're losing some control there. You're having way too many investors up front. And even though there's all these regulations you have to go to, and I appreciate that more than you could imagine, one thing I haven't seen with that industry yet is making sure that there's a sustainable business model, that the systems and processes and all of those good things are there for the long run. So even though you've got these investment opportunities, there's still this massive risk that it could collapse inward because it doesn't have those things in place to support that validated product or service. So I always find that terrifying as well, because now you've got all these stakeholders, that even there's more legal obligation to them than, say, on a Kickstarter. So I find it fascinating, but still haven't found where I would personally use equity, equity Kickstarter, equity crowdfunding, or recommend it yet. I haven't found a niche for that. And then to your point, Khierstyn, about how we need to have that. Do you guys remember the $10, $17,000 potato salad?
Mhm.
Yes, classic.
Right? Like how does something like that happen? Like the internet, we all know this. The internet is fickle. And you even talked about it. And we all talk about marketing. I did marketing for 22 years, top of my game. And everyone talked about, with the evolution of the internet is how can we make it go viral? And the answer was always shake your head and just go, you can't make anything go viral. There's an ingredient list and you can hope that it does, but you can never promise that to somebody. So then, you get a Kickstarter, I'll show you how to make the best damn $10 salad, raises $17,000.
Yeah.
What is that? Like that's the internet being fickle. So there's just, you can do so much and it still might not matter sometimes. It's so frustrating.
I feel like it was actually 7,000 backers pledged $55,000
Wow.
on that.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
There you go.
I stopped tracking it when it hit 17,000. I was
You're
like,
like,
this is
this is
insane.
ridiculous.
$55,000 for a $10 salad. That's great.
All right. So I've got a question here from the audience. I'm going to intermingle and add some stuff. So let's just say I don't have a community now. How do I build one quickly around my niche or product idea to get ready to launch? Building an email list, building that. Like, what's the best way to start doing this? And doesn't matter who
definitely.
starts. Yeah. Go ahead, Khierstyn.
Okay, cool. So how big your list and community is does depend on your goal. Because if you're trying to raise $1 million of pre-orders versus 10,000, it's very different. So just know I'll go through the two ways that we use to build a list. Number one, organic methods. Organic methods are things you don't have to pay for or are inexpensive. So that's going to be guest posting, that's friends and family, that's networking, that's shipping product to influencers for reviews. And then, so that's all organic. It's leveraging other people's audiences, using what resources and people you already know. The smaller the launch, the more, if you're looking at doing like a $10,000, $50,000 launch, you're relying heavily on friends and family and word of mouth and local communities to help you. If you are looking at doing the 6-figure plus level, you're going to rely heavily on less on organic and more on Facebook, Instagram advertising to build that email list. So the larger you're looking to do, the fastest way to get in front of more people is going to be to have Facebook and Instagram advertising to actively do a lead generation campaign to grow your email list to do that.
Marcus, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree. I love Facebook ads. I love Facebook ads. And I'd love to share this with you sometime, Khierstyn, is $100, 3 days, 200,000 qualified leads through Facebook. It's something we teach for generating lead lists and traditional business models.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to know, and I'm sure you guys would all agree, you just need to know who you're talking to, who is your client avatar. And Facebook can help you determine that within a 3-day, $100 ad spend, like you said, on a lead gen list.
Yeah.
And from there, you like, it doesn't even matter who replies to that. right? That's the fun part. Doesn't matter whether you get actually 10 people, 20 people, 100 people on your list. You're done after 3 days, because as long as, again, back to marketing, you've got the right message for those 3 days to the right people, the data that will have collected within Facebook will tell you everything about who your target audience is. And now you can do what you will with that. We've used that successfully for many businesses to go from 50,000 to 60,000 to 1 million to 20 million in the course of a year. So I can see how that would work very easily. It's the same approach. It's you need people to buy your product or service. So I love that you said that.
And anybody interested, they can go back and check the video buying leads from Facebook.
Right.
We had Marcus on for that. We did about a month ago, I think. I can't remember. So, and Alex, is it different when we're equity crowdfunding? I know sometimes there's rules around what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more rules around how you're approaching the language and everything related to your campaign, but it still comes down to the same sort of core approach. There's all this work that you can do sort of on the free or the organic side, just by sort of creating consistent content on your social channels, sending your product, doing collaborations or giveaways with other people. But yeah, it really comes down to Facebook and Instagram advertising to build that audience. And sadly, it still is that adage of it takes money to make money.
So we mentioned buyer personas, Alex, and is that different from an equity crowdfunding point of view when you're looking for an investor persona?
It's a great question. And what's exciting with equity crowdfunding is the minimum investment, or at least the minimum investment on Equivesto, is $100. And so because that amount is so low, it allows you to expand the group of people who you could be considering as investors so much more than sort of traditionally. So on one hand, you have individuals you might normally reach out to for investment, but you can also now speak to anyone who might be interested in becoming a consumer of your product down the road, or a supplier, or that friend and family group that you would normally hit for a Kickstarter. They can also participate. And because, again, the amount is much smaller, instead of going, the traditional venture capital angel route where you need to, the minimum investment is $25,000, $50,000, and you're pitching all these guys who usually end up being white in a room, you can now allow your whole existing community and the entire general public to invest. So individuals from the public who are looking for exciting investment opportunities can participate. People who are interested in your product can participate. People who are interested in the impact of your business can participate. And because you're not just offering pre-orders, people aren't limited. Before, if what you're selling is this really exciting water bottle, and it's it's a $70 water bottle, but it's the greatest one in the history of water bottles, the only way people can support you more is just to buy multiple water bottles or get additional benefits, whatever you're offering as part of your campaign. With equity crowdfunding, the more money you put in, the more part of the company you're actually purchasing, and the greater the potential return for you, if there is return at the other side.
Right.
You're muted, Craig.
So Marcus,
Yeah.
when this all comes down to conversions, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Kickstarter, Indiegogo, equity crowdfunding. We're talking about people coming to a website and converting. So when trying to convert a website visitor into like an investor or a supporter or customer, how important is the clear value proposition? And the second question follow-up is, how short should it be? I see these long things. I see a header and a page. I'm a full minute in. I still don't know what this company does. How important, how short should it be? How clear should it be?
Right. So I'm going to talk about project management for a quick minute. And when I'm teaching project management to people, there's a free resource from the PMI, which is the Project Management Institute, and it's called projectmanagementdocs.com. And when you go there, it's got the 5 phases of a project, and it has templates for every single document you need for each part of that. And in the second phase, there's like 30 different templates. You open up the template, it's like 10 pages long, and it's like so much information. And they say, this is what goes into a project. So the reason I bring that up is because I think it's all about scalability. It's about what do I need to know for this project? If I have a 2-week project, it'll take me more than 2 weeks just to fill out these templates. So instead of doing a 30-pager, I might have at least one line from each of these things just to high level talk about it, because it's a really short project. So similarly, if I'm selling a potato salad, I literally could have a picture of potato salad and just say, damn, that's good, want it? And that could be enough, because really, what more do you need to describe about a potato salad? Whereas if I'm looking at equity investors, I might want the long copy to talk to them about it from the standard marketing point of view, but then also say, look, you're not just supporting the product, you're buying into the company. Here is the due diligence we do. Here is the legal obligations you'll have. Here's the protection that you're offered. It might be more worthwhile to go into that. That to me would be the standard response here, Craig, is depending on how long your sales cycle typically is. Like, is it just a one sale and go, or do you have to nurture somebody over time? How expensive is the item or the service you're selling? All of that traditionally would determine the length of your copy on a landing page, or however you're doing it. But at the same time, then you see like a Kijiji ad for a Volkswagen that goes on for like 3 pages and becomes viral again because people think it's the most hilarious thing they've ever read. Just the level of effort that goes into something like that. So things break the norms all the time. But yeah, I'm going to stick with the answer of it's really based on what the value of the offering is, should determine the length.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I'm happy to jump in. One thing that is different about equity crowdfunding than a traditional sort of Kickstarter, or even just doing, ads for a product that you're selling online, is the amount of time between capturing, or the amount of effort it takes to actually capture your consumer. So with Kickstarter, someone could see the ad, click on the ad, it takes them to the Kickstarter page, and within a relatively short amount of time, maybe 30 seconds, they've signed up and paid. So in one ad sequence, it's possible to actually capture that person if your campaign is already running. With equity crowdfunding, it's not possible to do it that way. And the government has put these rules in place on purpose, because it's a serious decision to invest in a business. And as Marcus mentioned, there's legal obligations and there's risks involved. And, to take someone's money for free, there's no government regulation. You can just say, hey, donate money. And if people choose to, that's up to them. But as soon as you're offering something in return, a piece of a company and things like that, there's so much more effort and sort of paperwork involved. And so we don't actually direct people straight to the actual place where they can be investing. We have a secondary landing page, which is shorter, or you can have a private Facebook group or something else. There's other places where you want to capture them from the initial ad, so then you can nurture them and educate them slowly and then convert to that sale. So it's not even as easy as, okay, my campaign has launched on Equivesto. Now I'm going to dump 20 grand into Facebook marketing, and I'm just going to have an ad that directs straight to my campaign, and X% will convert, and away we go. They can't even see the full details of your campaign until they've signed up and created an account. And it takes us, 25 minutes to review their submission after it's completed. And we have to make sure that they're suitable and check their whatever they put for their net income and all this other stuff. So because of all that effort involved, the timeline is definitely different. And so you have to approach your marketing in a different way. The goal is actually to capture them in an email list or to a private Facebook group or somewhere, and then nurture them there or retarget them in other ways to educate them to the point where they're ready to invest. So there's definitely much more work than a traditional sort of, here's an ad, click on it, buy my product.
Well, actually, to be fair, you described a very typical funnel, right? Mm-hmm. The only difference is we're comparing it to that one-time purchase. But if it is a higher value item that they're not going to be spontaneous with, you got to do the exact same process. Get them into the group, start retargeting them, like whatever you need to do. So it sounds very much like just a high value item to me.
But the challenge for us, of course, is that they don't actually have to spend that high value. Well, $100 is not nothing, but we have to do that high value funnel for the much smaller dollar amount.
Right.
So it's like everybody's buying a car.
Being frustrating for people, right? Like if you're investing 10 grand, you expect due diligence like that, but for $100 and you have to go through all of that. I'd be interested to see how that plays out sometime, but that's not today's topic entirely.
Okay.
So, Khierstyn, where do you see people wasting the most time, either pre or during a launch?
Oh, yeah. So where do I start? Time or okay. Where do I go with this? They waste time by working on everything, but the two most important things that people need to focus on every day prepping for a launch. They need to find leads and they have to nurture those leads. Anything else is just noise. So we find that the people we coach get really outside of product development, they waste a lot of time on stuff that doesn't actually drive results. So, especially with people that still have that 9 to 5 job and only have a couple of hours a day at most to work on the business, you have to be very conscious of how you spend your time. And so, things that just take people a lot longer usually is either prototype delays or they're just not spending their time on high impact activities. So, where people waste most time is by not marketing and not realizing how long it takes to build that audience, especially if you're a solopreneur or doing this without experience of Facebook ads, right? So that's where people waste the most time is they just don't, either they don't have guidance, they don't have the roadmap, and they just don't know what activities specifically to focus on in the short time that they have to build that list, I would say.
Sorry, my cat is attacking my light over here. It's causing me a little concern.
Yeah.
On the other side, Alex, where during a campaign are people not spending time where they should be?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest, I would really actually direct it back to how they spent their time beforehand, because really with the campaign, especially with equity crowdfunding, investment usually is sort of U-shaped. There's a lot at the beginning when it's just launched, or hopefully there is, and then there's a lull in the middle, and then there's a spike at the end where people want to get in before it closes. And so from my perspective, when you're in the middle of the campaign, if you're having trouble or you're wondering why things aren't going the way that you're hoping, you really should have, and we try to talk to all of the companies we work with, you really should have spent the time beforehand to try to build that community and build that engagement. Because really when you launch the campaign, you're essentially pushing the snowball or the ball down the hill. And if you've built up the ball larger before pushing it, it'll gain that much more size as it rolls down the hill and gains momentum. But if you haven't done that time and effort before the campaign starts, then it doesn't matter what you do sort of as you're going, you still won't be able to gain that traction that you're hoping for.
So, Marcus,
Yeah.
when working with businesses, what is the biggest mistake you see people businesses doing when they're launching?
Yeah. Well, the biggest mistake. It's actually very similar to what these guys are talking about, and I love that they're kind of saying the same thing but from a different angle. It's communication, right? Everyone's so focused on get the work, do the product development, whatever it happens to be. Traditional business or a digital business like we're talking about with these campaigns, people are talking about you. The world is such a small place now digitally that if you're not the one consistently following up and communicating with your clients and potential clients, they're already talking to each other in your Facebook groups and everywhere else, and they're complaining about why aren't you talking to them. So I think the single biggest mistake people make is they start businesses, they launch campaigns, and they don't have content to support the nurturing of it. They don't have the words, they don't have the messaging, they don't have the marketing, they don't have the systems, they don't have all of this stuff in place that actually can work for them to get people to where they need to be so that they can focus on actually doing the work. They think, like, again, Field of Dreams, today I will show up and I will do the work and the world will be happy that I did so. It's very rare that that's actually how it goes. So I think having the communication and the supporting materials for communication are so critical and so overlooked by so many people.
I think your colleagues on the panel here would agree. They're all nodding yes.
Yeah, I saw that like out of the side of my peripheral vision. I was like, is everyone okay? The neck is just going. So yeah, I think we're all aligned on that for sure.
I always talk about the importance of pitching when it comes to startups, but we're slightly different here when we're talking about video pitching, and pitching your product or your company on a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or on an equity crowdfunding campaign. So, how important is the pitch video for your campaign, and what are the main components it needs, Alex?
Yeah, and it's a great question. The pitch video is exceptionally important, and that kind of makes me sad because I'm not super excited about video content personally. I'd much rather read things, but the way the trend is going right now is it's all about quality video content that's captivating and gets people's attention. And so having that strong pitch video that explains your message and gets people excited and aware and on board with your idea and vision in as short a time as possible is really critical in helping capture them. Because yes, you've brought them in with your ads, you've brought them in with the marketing, and now they're here, but building on that and really selling them is going to help close and sort of get that investment at the bottom of the funnel. That final effort really comes down to that pitch video and the other content on the campaign page. I think the importance here is to make sure, as I mentioned, that it's short. You don't want a 25-minute pitch video. People are not going to give you that much time. You want to make sure that it's concise. With equity crowdfunding, sometimes it goes a bit longer because you might want to talk more about the business, but at the most, we would say 5 minutes. And you want to make sure that it's fast-paced, it's well understood, and you've spent the time to craft it in a way that's going to connect with your audience. You know the community that you've been building and the type of work that your company does so much better than anyone else would, and you can create your video content in so many different ways to sort of match the style, the tone, everything that you've been doing up to this point with your community. So often people will engage with their community in a certain way, in a more casual, friendly, relaxed way, and then they'll get a bunch of funding and say, okay, I'm going to go build this really fancy video and it's going to be really professional, it's going to be wonderful, and they lose that tone, and then their audience like disconnects entirely from the video. It feels disingenuous, and then you're not going to have the same engagement that you're hoping for. And so if you found a method that works for your audience or one subset of your audience or whatever it is, you want to make sure that you align those things and you can really bring that passion to bear for individuals in that video.
And is it different for Indiegogo, Khierstyn?
No, slightly. The video,
yes, completely.
Yeah. No. Everything that Alex said, I agree with. The video, you have to invest in it. It's one of the two biggest investments you're going to make with your campaign. The video seals the deal, but when it comes to product, because you're not asking for investment, we need to see a video usually 2-3 minutes tops, because we're pitching the product and the benefits to the consumer and layering that with social proof. So the goal of the video is to convince someone that this is a product that's going to allow them to get a certain solution in their life, or it's just something they want. And people will even make a decision as little as 30-45 seconds into the video. So it's very, very fast. It's very transactional. It's very quick to the point. Whereas, because we're dealing with transactions that are usually like, consumers are thinking, oh, $100, this thing will look really awesome here, I'm going to wear it. Or it's like a day-to-day item versus a business's decision to invest in a company. Like that is just a much larger of a commitment versus a consumer spend of $100, maybe $200 on an item. So we're just going to find that the videos are shorter, but they do contain a lot of the same content and a lot of the same intent with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the message is the same. It's marketing, and the message is connect, which Alex said, and be relevant. You got to be relevant. So connect and be relevant. If you can't be relevant in that first 30 seconds, you've already lost them anyway. So that hasn't really changed. There's a great question actually from
Perfect.
Richard.
Yeah, I was going to read into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll answer that one first, I guess. Might not be the big elaborate answer you're looking for, but 20%, right? Traditional marketing spend 20%. And in my experience, if you're like, oh no, you need more than 20%, to me, that means you haven't, really locked in your message. You haven't tightened down and really gotten effective with what you're saying. So typically it's 20% of whatever your target revenue is. So for, like you said, in a Kickstarter, if it's 100,000, you're spending 20 grand on your video, no problem, on the marketing behind that, building that, getting it out there because you want the message. I don't know how much Khierstyn charges, for example, but if someone came to me and I wanted to do a Kickstarter and they're like, oh yeah, you want to raise 100,000, 50,000 is for your video, I'd probably go somewhere else because that just seems like too much. Similarly, if someone came back and said, oh yeah, we'll do a good video for $2,000, I'd be like, no, you won't. So 20% tends to be the traditional number for pretty much every marketing initiative I've ever engaged in the last 30 years.
And is that different? Just for the record, the question was guidelines for marketing materials and what is the suggested spend for 100,000 raise or a 25,000 raise?
Yep. So again, if we're at 20%, you're looking 20 grand or 5 grand for those two examples given. It's just 20%.
Alex, Khierstyn, any different opinion there?
Yeah, obviously. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Khierstyn.
Oh, we're also
So Canadian of us. Go ahead, Alex. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, with equity crowdfunding, it's going to be similar. I'm actually hoping it would be less than 20%. We obviously as a platform can engage in the marketing ourselves. We know the best practices and we provide some free advice to all the companies that work with us. But we have some friends in the community that we refer companies to if they're looking for specific equity crowdfunding marketing support. And usually they try to come in probably. I'm not going to talk on their pricing that much, but hopefully it's less than the 20%. I would say maybe 15 or slightly under that. But again, it's really about making sure you know exactly what you're doing with the money. If you know your community and what you're doing very well, you can lessen that spend drastically. But again, if you need to spend the time to do test ads and A/B testing for a few months to actually learn the most effective way, or you're just sort of throwing money everywhere and seeing what sticks, then you'll spend far more than that.
So we got a half pitch, half question here in the Q&A window. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but basically they're developing a Canadian-style creative live membership approach to develop an online community with big on cinemagraphs and short videos, and they're looking for suggestions on where to begin, from where to launch, where to start a campaign. I don't have. Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
I think here's where we are all going to disagree. So I love this question. So I think if you wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign, apps, SaaS products are a difficult sales pitch. They are successful, but if you were to entertain a Kickstarter, I'm not sure about equity, so I'm just going to speak to Kickstarter here. You don't want to go to Kickstarter looking for funding. What I would do is I would look for private funding, develop the platform, get some paid beta users to do a private beta launch with like 20 to 100 members, work out all the kinks, figure out what your customers want, get some great testimonials and iron it out, and then go to Kickstarter for the market launch to build up your user base. Because unfortunately with SaaS products, if you're just pitching app screenshots and what you want to build, you don't know what the final product is. You don't have customers using your product. You have no testimonials. And so your sales case and your pitch is going to be really weak if you're going into Kickstarter for funding too early. So I would suggest on the digital side that that's what you do. You do a private beta launch off of Kickstarter, work out the kinks, and then go to Kickstarter for a marketing campaign with that.
Anyone else want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So one of the minimum requirements to raise on Equivesto, and I'm pretty sure for almost all equity crowdfunding platforms, is to have the minimum viable product, the beta version of the software, the demo, whatever it is, because we have to verify that your business is actually creating something. Because there isn't even a pre-order of some product that you're promising at the end, you're getting essentially open-ended money whenever you're going for investors, whether it's equity crowdfunding investors or straight to angel investing. They need usually to see something tangible to know what they're buying. It's very hard to find investors who are willing to put up money before there is even something built, even at the beginning stages. And so, not to deviate too much from my sort of little soapbox of equity crowdfunding, but even with going out to angel investors, you're going to have trouble. At VCs won't even talk to you getting capital without having a beta version of the software. And so that's the real challenge with entrepreneurship. When you really are still at that core idea phase, really the only place you're going to find capital is potentially from family and friends at that early stage, or bootstrapping it yourself.
I mean, I'll add to that as well. Just specifically looking at your examples, I get that you're fiercely proud to be a Canadian. I love that. We're all fiercely proud to be Canadians. But then we have to look at, what is actually going to make for you to have a competitive edge here. You look at a company like Apple. Apple only has 4% of the market. That's a small number, and Apple is a massive company, right? Because they're dealing global. So if you look at 30 million people in Canada, because you're going to be marketing primarily to Canadians, differentiating yourself because you're Canadian, 4%, even if you become dominant like Apple, is not a whole lot of people that you're actually marketing to. And then your conversion ratios and everything else are going to be much smaller than that. So I love the names you have. You're very creative. They make sense to me. But I'm going to poo-poo all over it, because especially something like baby steps in Photoshop, you've got millions of videos on YouTube that people give away for free because that's their hook. That's how they're doing their organic marketing. They're going to teach you anything and everything you need to know in Photoshop to get you to sign up for their course later. So you've already got a massive amount of cards stacked against you with this particular thing. Cinemagraphs, I love cinemagraphs myself, but I've never seen them take off. And I've seen people beating those things around for 15 years now, and they've just never been fully utilized into any kind of mainstream video or web work. So I think, and don't take my advice for it, I'm not being a shark or anything. What I always tell people is talk to your audience, right? Ask them, what do you like that we're doing? What do you want us to stop doing? And what do you want us to do that we're not doing? So if you have these ideas, go to your friends, go to your family, go to your small community or your email list that you have and say, listen, I would like to put together a beta like Alex was talking about, a closed group beta, even charge them for the privilege and say, let's develop this thing. They're not getting any investment in it. They're not getting anything else, but they're getting to support you, and you're getting real feedback from your potential customers. And you'll know pretty quick whether this is a solid, sustainable idea or not, and without, driving yourself crazy or into bankruptcy.
Great advice. So with that, Marcus, do you have any parting words for our audience, and where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, parting words is, again, even though I said it was terrifying and exciting, I am consistently looking for Kickstarters to support, always looking for investment opportunities in businesses. I'm still relatively new to your world, Alex, so I'm sure you and I will talk more. People, get out there, see what's out there, not just for you to buy, but see how people are doing it. See how people take an idea and turn it into a reality, and learn from that. Because even though it's a singular platform, it can translate into every other area of your life. So just learn from what others are doing. I tune into these things and watch the replays all the time, because even if it's not something that's on my radar, I'm always learning something new that I can apply to what I'm doing. Again, my name is Marcus Dickinson, CEO of How To Project, doing remote project systems and management. You can find us at howtoproject.ca. And thanks as always, Craig.
Alex, parting words, and where can people find out more?
Yeah, it's I just want to echo what Marcus has said. It's always a great opportunity to go out and learn more. If you want to learn more about Equivesto and equity crowdfunding, you can go to equivesto.com, equivesto.com/learn. We have learning center for both companies and investors. So if you're trying to see if equity crowdfunding is a fit for you in either of those ways, that's a great place to start. We're also on all the social medias at Equivesto.
And Khierstyn.
Yeah, two things. You can go to Khierstyn.com, which is difficult to spell. So Khierstyn.com. for there. But if you're looking for a ton of free resources, go to YouTube my name, and we have full channel podcast with a ton of content. So that's where I'd start if you're interested in learning a bit more about Kickstarter.
And thank you, everyone, for taking the time. Thanks for the questions, everyone. This has been great. I appreciate everyone coming out today. And don't forget, we have investor speed dating Thursday evening. Sign up for that on TorontoStarts.com.
I'll see you
Take
there.
care. Thank you. Yeah, Alex will be there, and we'll see you all later. Thanks, everyone.